I'm Jason with the All Things Open team. I'm here with Max. Please introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Max Howell, creator of Homebrew and co-founder of T Protocol.
Well, I want to learn more about the T Protocol. Please, what is the T Protocol and how is it revolutionizing open source development?
Well, T Protocol is not out yet. We've been running our testnet all this year. It came from a personal problem that I had and many other people who do open source have, in that we want to work on open source full time, but the systems that we've tried to build to make that possible just aren't really functional. So I decided that there was a fresh take needed. So we're building a cryptocurrency project, and its purpose is to try and make it so open source developers can work full time on their open source.
Perfect. That's very fascinating. Well, I'm also learned that you're working on something called Chai. What is Chai, and how do you see it impacting the future of open source?
So Chai is the key technology behind T Protocol. It's an on-chain oracle that builds an impact database of all the open source projects, all 10.5 million of them.
Wow.
We use, this was the key insight that led me to founding the company, was one evening I had some weed, and it just fired a few neurons off that I hadn't had fired before. You know, I don't want to evangelize this stuff, but it did help. And I saw that the package manager data, obviously, which I'm pretty familiar with because of Homebrew, was this really difficult to gain reputation data. Like when you make a new open source project, you carefully choose your dependencies, the open source that you are building on top of. You're not going to pick something that's fake or doesn't work properly. So the reputation goes all the way down, becoming stronger. And you can use that to build a kind of bulletproof impact graph that you can use to distribute cryptocurrency to. As soon as you do anything with crypto, people try to exploit it.
Right.
The incentives are very strong. You can make a lot of money that way. So it's very important that the system we've used isn't easy to game. So Chai builds that database, and then every 24 hours, the T Protocol uses the Chai data to give away T token to the open source projects that have impact.
Got it. Wow, really cool. So you mentioned that you're the creator of the macOS package manager Homebrew. I'm just curious, is there anything that you would do differently if you started it today?
Probably not.
Well, that's a perfectly legit answer. If you got it right the first time,
There was something about when I was building it that I just had this feeling in the back of my head that it was going to be widely successful. And it was.
Perfect.
Extremely quickly, which gave me quite an ego for a few years. I thought I was some sort of god on this earth who could create the best products, no problem. And then I created some more products that weren't great. So I just got it right, and I built the community right, and I designed how people would participate and use it right. I think the only thing I might change if I built it today and not 15 years ago is I do it in Rust.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the technology changes, and people readjust that. But I think that's a really cool story. One of your other passions is about paying open source maintainers. Can we talk about that?
Yeah. Well, as I say, founding T Protocol was born out of personal need. About 3 years ago, I was once again in between full-time jobs, wanting to work on open source full-time. That's been my career, basically. I had a job when I built Homebrew, and Homebrew became so much more interesting to work on than that job. It was a good job, I liked it, but it was addictively fun to have so many people interested in what I was building and want to help and participate and build a community around that. So I took a year off to work on Homebrew full time, but obviously ran out of money, and had to go back into doing full-time work. And so it's been a cycle my whole career. And 3 years ago, I was like, I'm fed up with this. I want to work on open source full-time. And I've spoken to 300-400 other open source devs over the last 3 years, and 99% of them feel the same. If they could work on open source full-time, they would.
Right.
So the truth is, open source is a miracle. It works somehow, but It's a huge problem that the people who work on it have to find free time, evenings and weekends, and that leads to burnout every time. Like the potential for open source is stifled. And let's face it, I think most of the security problems that open source has are because these people have no incentive to really vet that code properly. They need that opportunity. So super passionate about that. We're hoping we'll fix it.
Yeah, so do you? What are the leading solutions to helping solve the paying the maintainer problem? Do you have any that are favorable?
Hey, this is Todd with All Things Open. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate it. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button. We've got a lot of new content coming we think you're going to be interested in. One final favor, be sure to go to allthingsopen.org, allthingsopen.org to see everything that we do. Back to the video.
I think commercial open source, as it's emerged over the last 4 or 5 years, is a pretty good way to do it. I say pretty good because T-Protocol, we're trying not to change anything about how open source works. You make a good open source project, we will reward you for that. Nothing changes.
Got it.
Commercial open source introduces some agenda. You have to build something that you can monetize. Then you have to make sure the thing you continue to build caters to your customers. And I think you're starting to see the effects of that in some of the older commercial open source companies, where the community is starting to realize that they no longer are served as well by the open source that these companies are building. So it's pretty good, but not great, and there isn't anything else I think that's worked. That's the truth of it. If everything else tends to treat open source like a public good that can only expect charitable donations.
Right.
And they beg these big companies to put their money where their mouth is. They're using all this open source. You should be paying for it, but the business justification for that just doesn't work with the capitalist society we have, and so the donations are slim pickings.
Yeah, a little bit of a catch-22. Do you have any tips, best practices, or new tools that you're using to share with the All Things Open community?
No. I'm actually building something. This is what I always do. I end up building the things I want. Like, it's not true that no is the answer. I really like Warp, and they have a booth here. I'm going to go and talk to them. Like, it's about time someone rethought the terminal. I think, they're putting a bunch of features in nobody needs because they're desperate to monetize that thing. Sorry, Warp. But I really like how they transformed the idea of how a terminal can be interfaced with. Otherwise, I build things, and I'm building something new alongside T-Protocol, which I think will be very interesting, with a working title of Prompt, which we'll be releasing early next year. I don't want to talk too much about it. But,
sounds cool, though. All right, well, we're here at All Things Open, and there's 5,000 people running around learning a whole bunch of stuff. Any advice on what people can do with all that knowledge after the conference?
Yeah, well, there needs to be more people building open source in this world for sure, and I understand why you don't. I think it's a rare breed of person that's like those of us who have sacrificed like monetary income or parts of their careers in order to build open source. So, I wouldn't say I'm altruistic by any means. I just really like doing it. So, I hope some people here are inspired to build that project they were thinking of, put it out there. Most of the time, open source isn't that much work. It's only when you strike really something that is urgently needed that it becomes overbearing, and that's when you need stuff like T-Protocol.
Got it. All right, Max, thanks for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right.